Ebola is a horrific infection that causes a horrible, messy death. But technically, it's not the infection that kills you. It's you that kills you. Hey D-Newsers, Trace here. Ebola is ravaging West Africa with over 1,400 dead and almost 3,000 infected. The outbreak is real and horrible. And though it is a terrible infection, it's not actually the virus. It's your immune system that's doing the killing due to a cytokine storm. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let me explain how we got here. Ebola, or EVD, was first identified in 1972. Two simultaneous outbreaks occurred in the Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Those two people were likely infected by fruit bats, and the virus was named for the Ebola River, which runs by the town in DRC where the virus was found. Today the outbreak is happening in West Africa, 2,500 miles from the DRC, and it was probably moved there by fruit bats. When a regular virus infects you, like the common cold, cytokines are created in response to send signals to the immune system. A cytokine is a protein produced by your body to send signals between cells. There are many different kinds of cytokines, and they're used by a bunch of your systems, including the immune system. The system then sends out dendritic cells, which eat the infection, learn about it, and then tell the immune system to produce antibodies, which stop the brothers of that virus from further infecting your body. When Ebola infects your body, it attacks those immune systems that launch the dendritic cells first. Without that dendritic instruction, the antibodies don't have any blueprints to use to combat the virus. Thus, Ebola replicates unabashedly, exploding cells and running wild, and eventually the immune system throws everything it has at it to try and stop the infection. That is called a cytokine storm. The cytokine storm is like your body's version of DEFCON 1. All your body's defenses come shooting into your bloodstream. There are antibodies and white blood cells flying everywhere trying to destroy this infestation. But like global total thermonuclear war from war games, it does harm the enemy virus, but neither side wins. Put it simply, due to the cytokine storm, the walls of your blood vessels become more permeable. Thus, blood and plasma leak into the surrounding tissue, and sometimes that's the eyes, nose, ears, and it's taking Ebola with it. In response to its own onslaught, your body then releases nitric oxide to try and regulate your blood pressure. But that nitric oxide damages the blood vessels even more, thinning your blood and dropping your blood pressure even further. This causes something like septic shock, or shock due to low blood pressure. As you probably know, Ebola is spread by infected bodily fluids. That includes blood, plasma, stool, and urine. But it also can spread through spit that might fly during a conversation, sweat, and fluids that leak out of the body even after death. The World Health Organization says that it almost always spreads human to human, though it can be from infected meat. And it takes between 48 hours and 3 weeks before a newly infected person may show symptoms. They also say there are no vaccines and no proven treatments for Ebola, though it's important to note that infection isn't a death sentence. 47% of carriers survive. How does this make you feel about your immune system? Also, do you like war games? Because that movie was totally awesome. Come let us know on Facebook, and for more information on Ebola cures, check out Karen Bondar's video for us, and come say hello to me on Twitter. I'm Trace Dominguez. Thanks. Healthcare workers in West Africa are currently battling the largest Ebola outbreak in history. More than 670 people have died, including health workers, and more than 1,100 people have been infected. It is a huge problem. In past outbreaks, Ebola has a 90% fatality rate. There's no vaccine, and it can be dormant in humans for a few days to a few weeks before showing symptoms, meaning that an infected human could board a plane and spread the disease to anywhere on the globe unknowingly. So how worried should we be? Could Ebola be the next global pandemic? The short answer is no. Ebola begins with infected animals, and jumping from animals to humans is fairly rare. But when it has jumped, Ebola passes from person to person through contact with infected blood or feces. It could conceivably spread through contact with saliva or sweat, but according to expert epidemiologist Stephen Morse from Columbia University, it's unlikely there have been cases in which that's happened. The current outbreak in Africa is largely due to poor sanitary conditions, a lack of education about the disease, and a lack of resources. It is customary in the section of West Africa where Ebola has spread for family members to clean the body of the deceased before burying it. Ebola causes diarrhea and external bleeding, so handling the dead is a major way that the disease spreads. This part of West Africa also has limited medical resources, so infected people are being treated in crowded, understaffed facilities. There aren't enough health workers, and the ones that are there work 12 to 24-hour shifts, putting themselves at greater risk. But Ebola is still an isolated issue and will most likely stay that way. Even if an infected person were to hop a plane to the U.S. and bring the disease here, the CDC would have a team in place to handle and contain the outbreak almost immediately. Plus, all hospitals nationwide are already on alert, so if anyone were to show up with Ebola symptoms, the CDC would be contacted and work to contain the disease would begin immediately.